In North America, Great Britain, and Australia, homeowners spend over $30 billion every single year on grass they aren't even allowed to eat. We water it, fertilize it, obsess over perfect green stripes, and spend our weekends walking behind heavy gas-powered blades, all to keep a crop alive that produces absolutely zero food. If an alien species watched us from space, they would assume grass was the undisputed ruler of Earth, and humans were merely its unpaid servants. But 200 years ago, having a lawn was not a weekend chore. It was a terrifying display of absolute power. In 18th century Europe, if you owned land, land meant survival. You grew wheat, raised cattle, or planted orchards. To take dozens of acres of perfectly fertile soil, cover it in useless turf grass, and keep it neatly trimmed meant one thing. You were so unfathomably wealthy that you could afford to waste land just to show off that you didn't need to farm it. There was only one problem. Keeping grass short before electricity or engines was an absolute nightmare. To maintain an estate lawn, English aristocrats had to hire armies of laborers armed with scythes, massive, razor-sharp curved blades. These men had to wake up at dawn while the grass was still damp with dew, swinging heavy blades for hours just to level a single field. If you couldn't afford a small army of laborers, your only other option was to let a herd of sheep graze on your front yard. But sheep had a nasty habit of tearing up the roots and leaving behind, well, a massive, foul-smelling mess across your pristine estate. The wealthy elite wanted the prestige of short grass, but the human labor was too expensive, and the sheep were too gross. Modern suburban culture was trapped behind a massive technical bottleneck. Until one man walked into a cloth factory and saw a machine that had nothing to do with grass at all. The year was 1830, in Gloucestershire, England. An engineer named Edwin Beard Budding was staring at a machine inside a local textile mill. The machine was used to trim the loose, uneven nap off freshly woven woolen cloth. It featured a rotating cylinder fitted with curved blades that spun against a fixed bottom blade, shearing the fabric perfectly flat. As Budding watched the blade spin, he had a crazy thought. If a spinning cylinder of curved blades could shear uneven fibers off a piece of wool, why couldn't it shear blades of grass off a lawn? Budding went to work in his workshop, adapting the textile machinery into a heavy iron pushcart. He placed a iron roller on the ground connected to gears, so that when a person pushed the cart forward, the rolling movement forced the cutting cylinder to spin at high speed. It worked. For the first time in human history, one person could cut a lawn without a scythe and without sheep. Determined to protect his idea, Budding tested his prototype late at night in the dark corners of his local park, terrified that his neighbors would steal his design. When he finally patented the invention in 1830, he wrote a warning directly into the patent document. Gentlemen will find in using my machine an amusing, useful, and healthy exercise. What Budding didn't realize was that his heavy iron contraption had just fired the opening shot of a cultural revolution. Early lawn mowers were not the lightweight plastic tools we have today. They were brutal, heavy iron beasts. Budding's original mower required immense physical strength to push. Shortly after releasing it, larger models were built that had to be pulled by horses, donkeys, or oxen. But this created a hilarious new problem. When a heavy horse pulled a heavy iron mower across a wealthy lord's estate, the horse's heavy iron shoes left massive, ugly hoofprints all over the soft green turf. To fix this, English aristocrats forced their horses to wear custom-made leather and rubber boots over their hooves whenever they mowed the lawn. Picture a 100-acre estate in Victorian England, with horses wearing oversized leather slippers, pulling massive iron cylinders to maintain a giant green flecks of wealth. For the remainder of the 19th century, the lawn mower remained a luxury item strictly for the ultra-wealthy, municipal parks, and elite sporting venues like the All England Croquet and Lawn Tennis Club, which bought one of Budding's early mowers to maintain the grass for a brand new tournament called Wimbledon. The lawn was still an exclusive playground for the rich. But across the Atlantic Ocean, a massive shift was brewing that would turn this elite status symbol into a mandatory suburban obligation. Fast forward to post-World War II America. Millions of soldiers returned home, got married, and needed housing. Enter developers like William Levitt, who pioneered the modern American suburb with developments like Levittown. Instead of cramming families into city apartments, developers mass-produced identical single-family homes, each placed neatly in the middle of its own private patch of green grass. Suddenly, millions of middle-class families owned their very own miniature estate. And with that miniature estate came the heavy social pressure to maintain it. During this post-war boom, two crucial things happened at the exact same time. First, small, cheap, gas-powered rotary engines were perfected. You no longer needed a horse wearing leather boots or the strength of a weightlifter to trim your yard. Anyone could pull a cord and let a gas engine spin a flat steel blade at thousands of revolutions per minute. Second, the lawn ceased to be a hobby and became a moral test. As suburbs grew, neighborhood associations and municipal governments began passing strict codes. A tall, overgrown lawn was no longer viewed as personal preference. It was treated as a sign of laziness, disrespect, and a threat to neighborhood property values. If you let your grass grow too high, you weren't just neglecting your yard, you were sabotaging your neighbor's financial investment. The green lawn shifted from an aristocratic flex of luxury to an inescapable suburban obligation. Today, grass is the single largest irrigated crop in the United States, covering over 40 million acres. That is more land than is used to grow corn, wheat, and fruit combined. And maintaining this living green carpet has birthed an industrial leviathan. Every year, homeowners pour billions of gallons of water, hundreds of millions of pounds of chemical fertilizers, and millions of gallons of gasoline into their yards. We have engineered specialized grass seeds designed to withstand drought, developed robotic mowers that use GPS to navigate yards while we sleep, and turned lawn striping into an internet subculture. We built an entire multi-billion-dollar global industry around keeping a plant in a permanent state of teenage growth, never letting it grow tall enough to produce seeds, and never letting it die. All because nearly 200 years ago, a British engineer looked at a cloth trimming machine in a woolen mill and asked a simple question: what if we did this to grass? The next time you pull the starter cord on a Saturday morning, listen closely. That isn't just an engine roaring to life. That is the sound of a 200-year-old obligation echoing through your neighborhood.